Hi, I'm Andrew, and this is Life with ALS. I would like for you to meet another one of my nurses. Can you introduce yourself and where you're from?
Sure. I'm Jim. I was born in upstate New York, but I've lived in North Carolina since I was 9, so about 29 years.
What inspired you to become a nurse?
What inspires a guy to do anything? A girl. I was, the girl I was dating in high school, she decided to go to UNCG for nursing. And I didn't have any money for college. So I always knew I was going to join the military. I tried joining the Air Force as an air medical evacuation specialist, but I'm colorblind. So they wouldn't let me do that. So I went over to the Army, and the recruiter said, well, look, there's 212 ways to be a soldier. You qualify for about 210 of them. What do you want to do? I don't know. I just want to be in the military. The only thing I could think of was, all the hula hula stuff, shooting guns and running. And the dude said, well, how about combat medic? That sounds cool, sure. He said, well, there's another program that you could qualify for too. It's the Army Practical Nursing course. Okay. It was less inspiration and more accidental. My mom, she was a nurse for, I don't even know how long. She's 62. She just retired this year. So she's been a nurse since she was 20, I think. So 42 years. Or no, 40 years. So that had a little influence, but honestly, it was mostly completely by accident. The Army said, hey, you want to do this? And I said, I guess.
How long have you been a nurse?
Let's see, since 2009. So, let's see, 15 years.
How many people with ALS have you cared for?
Let's see, counting you, 4 now. Although, you're the first non-vet with ALS that I've ever had. Yeah, all the other ones have been veterans. And as a small aside, I don't know if you knew this or not, veterans are more than 50% more likely to get ALS than the civilian populace.
What is the same or different in caring for me relative to your previous clients?
As far as similarities go, ALS is fairly standard in its progression. One of the ALS patients that I'd taken care of, his had progressed to the point he could no longer use the eye gaze computer. All his communication was done just with his eyes. I'd ask him a yes or no question, and he'd look this way for yes and this way for no. Like, I'd always tell him, look at me for yes, look away from me for no. That way, I didn't have to remember which one meant yes, which one meant no, and it would differ based on whether I was facing him or, So I told him, I said, let's just keep things simple for you and me. He was he was retired Army drill sergeant, so he said, okay. The other guy I took care of, who was very similar to you, with the exception that he had small kids. That made caring for him a little more difficult. Just because they were constantly in and out, but they were sweet kids. So it didn't bother me half as much as some of the other nurses. One of the big differences with you is with the setup that you've got, you're able to do and control far more than the other patients that I've taken care of with ALS. I don't know if they didn't have, I'm not sure whether they just didn't have the support or what it was with them. One of them had kind of a similar setup, but he didn't have the eye gaze computer that he used was nowhere near as advanced as the one that you've got. So it hindered our communication a little bit, just because it was very difficult to get it to track his eyes. And when I was doing care with him, kind of like I do with you sometimes, where I'm kind of leaned over, like partially in front of the eye gaze, and I ask you a question, and you're still able to answer me with it. With his, if I was anywhere near the front of it, it would track my eyes. It would try and track my eyes and his. So I had to stand, So I always had to stand back behind it when I was asking him a question, which got to be a problem when I'm doing like wound care or something, and I have to be right there. I have to stop, go back behind it, ask him the question, wait for the response, and then come back. So with your setup, it's far, far easier. And not to put too fine a point on it, you're fairly independent, which is awesome for me. Not that I would mind if you weren't, but one of my other ALS patients, Lord bless him, he I'd get sat down and start doing paperwork for about 5 seconds, and he'd call for me. And then I'd go back and start doing my paperwork. He'd call for me. So finally, I just ended up bringing my chair and the table right sitting next to his bed to do my paperwork.
Do you have any advice for other nurses working with people who have ALS?
Patience. Not like the patients themselves, obviously, but have patience with the patient. Get to know them, their preferences, how they like things. Whenever I go to a new patient and I do orientation, it's not like the nursing care is any different. I mean, giving meds is giving meds. Doing wound care is doing wound care. Same thing with, trachs and vents and cough assist and the whole nine. All the medical stuff it's the same. But what you have to get to know is what makes the patient the most comfortable, what they're used to. There's a lot of nurses that they're set in their ways, and it's, well, this is the way I do things. Okay, well, it might be the way you do things, but you're not at your house. You're at your patient's home. So unless it goes against, the board of nursing, unless it's something that's unsafe or medically contraindicated, why are you fighting with the patient about how they want to do things? It's their house. Let them do whatever they want. You are there to make sure that they're still alive when you leave. The end. So just be patient, be kind, learn your patient.